What's going on, folks? It is a beautiful day in Zone 5 and we are here checking out some plants. Peeps, take a look at this stuff. What is this stuff? What is going on? Is it fungus? Is it something gross? What kind of deposits are these? The stuff we're seeing here on these pots is called efflorescence. And efflorescence is a salt buildup on the outside of the pot. So these terracotta pots, they're permeable. And you know, like when you see a new brick building, and you'll see those white deposits on the outside of that, that's the same stuff that you see here. So the water is kind of drawing out the salts in the material and it's bringing it to the surface like you see here. You can wash this stuff off. If you catch it early enough, it's pretty easy to wash off. Or, you know, if you're outside, you can just kind of spray them and it'll kind of wash them off pretty well as well. Now, if it's built up over long periods of time, it's going to be harder to remove. You might need to use vinegar, you know, and a brush or something like that. Now, these aren't too bad at all, so I would be able to just wash these off with water. Now, I actually did wash these off recently, and you can tell it's come right back. Now, these are newer terracotta pots, so it's gonna happen more often with these. So if we look at an older terracotta pot, now this pot, I rarely have to wash this anymore, but I've had this pot for years. So I think with the newer terracotta pots, you're gonna see that more, you know, depending on where the raw material that they made the pots came from and you know, kind of like the mineral content in those pots. So let's take a closer look at some of these other terracotta pots that have this stuff in there and we'll look at how to wash these off. Well, how do you guys clean your pots? Do you ever get this buildup and you need to clean them off? What do you do? Is there an easier method? Let me know. You can see some of these pots that we've got here, moss growing on them and some really crusty deposits on some of these here. If I can get this in the light. So these kind of deposits that you see on these are going to be a lot tougher to remove. So I'll definitely need to get a little bit more aggressive with them. And with ones like this, they wouldn't just wash off with water. But the ones we'll take a look at in a minute here, those are gonna wash off a lot easier, so I could probably just wash those right off of my hands. So let's head inside and check it out. So this is not a fungus. It is possible that you do have fungus on the outside of your terracotta pots if they're way too wet. So we don't need to remove this stuff. And you know, in fact, that patina can actually look really nice. So worst case scenario, you will need to get some vinegar and maybe a brass brush or a coarse nylon brush to get this stuff off. Best case scenario, you can just wipe it off with your hand. You know, middle of the road probably is going to be using some water to wash it off with a rag or any kind of brush that you might have. So efflorescence, it sounds kind of technical, but don't be afraid to wipe this stuff right off your pots. You can, if you like the way it looks, just leave it on there. If not, then wipe it off. You know, I think that, you know, if it gets too thick, it looks really bad, but you know, around the edges, you know, if it looks like a really kind of baked on sort of patina that's built up over years, it can look good. So, but you don't want it to be just looking like it's fully white and like there's some weird kind of mass growing on there. So you have this crusty, powdery white deposits. They don't look great. So the efflorescence occurs when the water soaks in and then kind of evaporates out, and on its way out, it leaves these mineral deposits like calcium. So, you know, this can be from heavy fertilization, or it can be just from the minerals that are in the clay that the pot was made from. So, you know, one thing you could do to try to prevent this is you could soak it in a distilled water to see if, you know, if you have brand new pots, you might want to try and do that, and that would kind of reduce the amount of minerals that are in the pots. But if you already have hard water, you're going to be reintroducing minerals back in there, and those are going to eventually migrate to the outside of the pot. All these minerals in the water, it's also in the clay of the pot, it's in the potting medium, stuff like calcium, magnesium, sulfate, nitrate, phosphate, ammonium salts, all that stuff is eventually going to migrate to the outside of the pot and build up a residue on the outside of the pot once it dries up. So these deposits can look really bad when they're crusty. It can look kind of nice if they're pretty subtle, like on an older pot, but like newer pots or pots where there's a lot of fertilizer or very hard water can get these very crusty deposits, and they just look kind of dirty, not like an old pot. So in that case, you're probably going to want to wash it off. So to prevent this, you can use rainwater rather than tap water. That's going to have less dissolved minerals in the water. Probably you wouldn't want distilled water necessarily. Rainwater is the best way to go. If you have to use tap water, just use it. It's not going to hurt anything. If you can use organic fertilizers or organic compost solution like compost tea. But rainwater would be one great way of reducing this. Rainwater at the end is going to be better for your plants. Is tap water going to kill your plants? No. But if you have rainwater, use it. If not, then use your tap water. So if this stuff is super crusty and you can't get it off with just water or a water and brush, then you can use some white vinegar. You can dilute it if you want to, but the low pH and acidity of the vinegar is going to break down these mineral deposits so that they kind of wash off easier. It's going to dissolve it. So like if you have a really crusty deposit and you dunk the pot in a vinegar solution, you'll actually see little bubbles coming off of it. So if you want to dilute it, that's a great idea. It'll help you save vinegar, and it'll kind of make the solution less acidic. So if you want to use 1 cup of vinegar and a few cups of water, that would be a good ratio. The less vinegar you use, the longer you'll need to soak the pots. So you can completely submerge them, and you probably see bubbles coming up if you have heavy deposits on there. So soak them for like 20 minutes, pull them out, and then see if you can wipe off that deposit after that. If not, put them back in and let them soak until you can. If you can't wash them off with just your hand or a rag, you might need to get a stiffer brush to kind of get in there and really, really rub them down. So if it's really crusty, you can use pure vinegar. But since you're going to want to submerge them, you're probably not going to want to waste a whole gallon of vinegar on this. So creating a dilute solution with water is just going to help you save money on vinegar. If you do use pure vinegar or even the dilute solution, try and soak your pot afterwards in just straight water to really kind of get that out of the pot, because that terracotta is going to absorb whatever you soak it in. So it's a good idea to kind of get that acidity out of there, before you use it again. So another thing you can actually do, if you have a dishwasher, you can actually throw your pots right in the dishwasher. I've never done this. I've heard of people doing it though. That might save you a little time if you've got a ton of pots you need to do. But you know what? Why not? Just throw them right in there. If you got a dishwasher, go for it. Well, that's it for today, folks. Thanks for watching. If you do have any suggestions about a more efficient way to clean these pots, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this and what's helped you to prevent this from popping up again and again so you don't have to wash them quite so much. But again, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Click subscribe, click the like button if you haven't, and I will see you next time.